Bachelor of Screen Production is a partnership between Excelsior College and Sydney Film School. Excelsior's pedigree in the academic world is second to none. Sydney Film School, we teach filmmakers how to make films. So in this course you get both the theory and the practical merged together so that you understand what it is to not only tell stories but actually execute them so that you can deliver those to an audience. Excelsior has a wonderful campus, including a theatre, and students study there for some of their subjects, and 25 minutes away they study at Waterloo Studios, which is the home of Sydney Film School. Waterloo Studios is a fully functioning production studio. We have sound stages, edit suites, rehearsal rooms, screening rooms, and the equipment that we use is professional. We have partnerships with a whole range of different professional suppliers. We've put everything under the one roof. If students are interested in making films, there's no better place than studying with us because we bring all the elements of film together. Between Excelsior and Sydney Film School, we have an extensive network of professional relationships that don't just span for Sydney, they actually span all over the world. I wish I was 18 again and I could start this program. It has the right balance between the theoretical aspects of filmmaking, the understanding of storytelling, but also the philosophical elements of what are you going to make films about. We effectively push you off the cliff. We get you to fly. We get you to go out and make films in an incredibly supportive and an inspiring environment. And we really have one saying, which is this: your vision. We want you to make the films only you can make. We get you to understand who you are, why you want to tell these stories, how to execute the stories, and ultimately how to make the film. And here's the greatest thing: share your stories with the world.
We go where the need is greatest, to help the world's most vulnerable children. Every 60 seconds, a family gets access to clean water, a hungry child is fed, a family receives the tools to overcome poverty. We tackle poverty with solutions that last. We're on the ground when disaster strikes. We stand in solidarity with vulnerable children and their families. And in Australia, we partner with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities to create positive change. You can help make it all happen.
Welcome back to the Connect 20 Online Media and Arts Summit, thanks to CBM. I'm Luke Weston here in Kiwiland.
And I'm Mel here in Aussie land. Okay, I'm super excited about our next guests.
Yeah, that's right, Mel. Hollywood-based Phil Cooke is a legend when it comes to assisting organisations and ministries not suck when it comes to doing media. That's his words, not mine, but it's what he does. And in this session, Phil is joined by another legend in both our nations, Mel, Kiwi-born Mr. Jay Laga'aia.
I know, Play School. It's Play School. Oh, I love Jay Laga'aia. Well, he's got a lot of stories to tell, games to play. Luke?
He certainly has. Well, I didn't want to interrupt because you were having so much fun. But in terms of relevance for our conversation today, over his career to date, Jay has done some amazing reinventing, from going on to Home and Away and Water Rats to musicals and starring in 2 of the Star Wars films. He's done it all. And in today's conversation, Phil and Jay are going to unpack why a moment like this is the best time to rethink everything. And they will share some insights into what you should be doing right now to emerge from this crisis transformed. Well, thanks to Excelsior College, here's Phil Cooke and Jay Laga'aia.
Hi, my name is Phil Cooke, and I'm with Jay Laga'aia today talking about reinvention. And so you may be watching this and you're at a period in your life where you need to reinvent. Certainly we're coming out of this whole COVID-19 thing and everybody's talking about the new normal. Everybody's talking about things are not going to be the same. I've also discovered coming out of a crisis is a great time to rethink your personal branding, who you are, your career, reinvent your purpose in life. So these are all good questions and good timing to talk about today. So Jay, I know you're an actor, so you've probably been reinventing multiple times in your life, huh?
Look, I think we here, especially in Australia, as far as performers are concerned, as much as we want the public sympathy or the fact that all our jobs are gone, we don't know what we're doing, this is just a way of life for me for the last 40 years. So unfortunately, as much as I would love to take on the sympathy of our public as such, this is the way of life of a performer. We don't know what we're doing from one day to the next. The only issue is that the ability to create work, the ability to gather people together to perform to them has also been taken away from us. So you'll have, it's just all I can hear is my mother's voice in my ear going, "Get a proper job, get a proper job."
Well, it's funny in this culture we live in today. I don't think there is such a thing as a proper job anymore. Things are changing so rapidly, and I've discovered in my own life that about every 10 or 12 years, I have a major reinvention. Certainly little things I change. I'm always tweaking. I'm tweaking a lot of things about my career constantly, but about every 10 or 12 years, 10 or 12 years ago was the financial crash here in the US. And then about 10 or 15 years before that was 9/11. We just seem to always be in cycles of recreation, reinvention, crisis, whatever. So I just think this is a good conversation for everybody, because exactly what you're talking about, we live in a world today where we're constantly faced with a crisis. We're constantly faced with the need to change.
Well, I agree with you, and I think a lot of people would sit here, be watching this going, what have you got to worry about? I'm looking at the array of paraphernalia you have in the back there, and I have no doubt whatsoever that that is not a screenshot. But in saying that, it's going, well, what do I have to offer? How can I recreate or reinvent my life? Because you have every opportunity to do so. You have lots of different avenues. But for me, it's always that thing of going, I believe that you have to start from the same common spot. You have to start from the same common place. You have to be thankful for what you have first.
Good.
You have to look around and go, it's not what I've lost or what I don't have. What do I have now? Okay, yes. What do I want to do with my life? Where do I want to go? It's the old saying, choose a job you truly enjoy and you'll never work a day in your life. With my students, it's always about chase the joy, because the money will come. If it's a job that will get you up in the morning, if it's a job that will let you stay up at night, and something that you will chase even if they don't pay you, then that's a job that you will invest yourself in.
That's so true. Well, it's interesting. I wrote a book a number of years ago called One Big Thing, Discovering What You Were Born to Do. And I really do believe that the people that really break through, the people that get noticed, the people that accomplish great things are not people that are average at a bunch of things. They're people who are extraordinary at one big thing. Now, that one big thing isn't necessarily a job. It's more of a calling. It's more of a purpose. It's why, what were you put on the earth to do with your life? How are you wired? And so like in your case, you can accomplish that through teaching. You can accomplish it through acting. You can accomplish it through a number of ways, but you still have an overarching vision for your life and a purpose and where you want to go. And I think that's important for people to realize. It's not necessarily about a job I have at this moment. I think your purpose, your destiny, if you will, is much bigger than that. So when we reinvent, we're not necessarily changing the course of our life. We're kind of changing how we're adapting and changing to how we're going to eventually get there. And I think you're right. Starting out by just knowing what we have and where we are is the way to do it.
There's always a mindset, and I think it is a mindset that our parents have always given us about going, choose one thing and stick to it. Choose that job, and that's the job that, your father worked at Ford for 45 years and got a watch, Unfortunately, that's not our time now. They always say that, the problem with young people nowadays is that, they listen to respond. They don't listen to understand. And I think for us in this situation, you have to understand that sometimes your reinvention includes other people in your journey. Sometimes it's not only about you. Sometimes your job is to start the momentum, is to start the conversation, and then to bring other people in order to teach you a lesson about about sharing the load. Sometimes we're terrible. I know performers, myself included, we're terrible about going, hey, I need a hand here. Could somebody give me a hand? No, I can do it myself. Whereas sometimes, there's the big ethos, the big guy upstairs is going, no, you need a hand. So go and ask somebody.
That's true. And then one of the things I've experienced in my own life is we often get stuck in an era when we did really well. One of the big reinventions I had in my life was about 15 or more years ago when I looked around and I realized that I had gone through a period where I'd had the opportunity to do some really big projects. I'd won some awards, I'd gotten some recognition, but I kind of got stuck in that era. And so years later, I look back and I thought, my videos, my commercials, my television programs, they're still they're dated because I'm still doing them the way I did back then when I was so successful. In fact, I work with churches or ministries or nonprofits today that were super successful back in the 90s, but they're struggling today. And it's because they get stuck in the 90s. They think, well, because our fundraising worked back then, because the way we marketed ourselves worked back then, maybe we should keep doing that. But I think we tend to get stuck in eras when we did really well, when we got some recognition, and we don't realize that, the Bible says God's word never changes, but trust me, everything else does. Trends change, styles change, culture changes, people change. And so I think the key is just don't get stuck at that place where you may have done really well in the past, because that's gone, that's past. It's time to think about what we need to do to move forward. Have you experienced that in your career?
Yeah, look, I think we all get to a point where, people ask you, but you're so settled now. Why are you changing? And for me, it's always that thing of going, I need to get scared again.
Yeah. Ooh, I like that line.
And I think I meet a lot of people in the industry who are fantastic, but when you look at them, they're not hungry. And sometimes it is that thing of going, you haven't actually had to go without a meal, because you need to sample that. There's the old saying of the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is now. And I think that reinvention for you, especially for those who are listening and watching this, anyone can reinvent themselves. What we're talking about is an actor's phrase about staying in the moment. You're only as good as your last success. And if your last success is 5, 6, 7 years ago, you're not part of the conversation now.
That's true. That's true. It's interesting that one thing interesting about the media business, whether it's film, television, whatever, it's largely, at least here in Hollywood, it's largely a freelance business. So even with our company, we deal with an enormous number of freelancers. And it's just interesting to me that I'm fascinated. I was a freelancer for a long time before we launched our company. And I just have always thought that I love the way freelancers think. I mean, they essentially wake up every morning unemployed. And so when I'm on the set, when we're producing a television program or a film, and when I yell cut or the director yells cut, it's interesting because you can always tell the freelancers because they immediately whip out their phone and they start talking on the phone and they're lining up their next project or their next day of work. It's just they're always thinking about how to connect to the next job. And I think very often full-time employees get stuck. I mean, we have our salary. A full-time employee has a salary, a benefit package. They're used to doing things a certain way. They have their office set up in a certain way. And I think that if we could shift our mindset so that even if we're full-time, we start thinking like freelancers. So we're always marketing, always thinking about who do I need to meet? What relationships do I need to have? I need to grow. I need to learn more about my business, or I need to learn some new things. I think that's a mindset that really gets people out of being stuck and helps them really be flexible for anything. I did a lot. One thing I really believe in is what we call a side hustle. Always be doing things on the side. When I had a full-time job, I got fired at 36 years old. And I remember that when I got fired, I had been doing some side projects, with different clients. And the day after I got fired, one of those clients called me and gave me a substantial project that really started my freelance career. So I was out of work for like 24 hours simply because I'd been doing some things on the side, keeping those relationships up. So I know you see that in acting there in Australia as well, but the truth is getting into that mindset of always being ready for a shift, always be ready for a change, because in this economy today, you just never know how long your job is going to last. So I'm a big believer in being ready for anything.
It's always exciting, and side hustles, what you tend to find is that side hustles are things that you invest your time in because you really enjoy doing it. Because
True.
we look over here and go, that's paying the rent, so I'm gonna come and help you because I really enjoy your company and I really think that what you're doing is great. And what you find is that, why don't I do stuff that I really like doing, because I'll do that better. I always look at myself as a farmer. We freelancers are farmers because we sow our seeds for later on down in the year. We always are 6 months ahead of ourselves so that we go, all right, I've got that coming up, I've got this coming up. And, a lot of people go, you've been doing this all your life. Aren't you afraid? Have you ever looked at this and gone, you call it freelancing. We call it unemployed. But for me, my mindset is that, this is the best way to be. This is a great way to be because you have to rely, I believe that you have to invest in the ethos. You have to give of yourself without expecting to receive. You have to help those side hustles, even though you're taking a cut or you're delivering it on your own time. Why? Because at the end of the day, what goes around comes around. I truly believe that at the end of the day, if you're chasing the joy, the money will come. And anyone can do this. It's about starting off small. And I always believe that you set a goal, but it's the journey that teaches you about life. Because by the time you reach the goal, a lot of people, I've got friends who, were admitted to the bar. They trained to be lawyers. And then as soon as they became a lawyer, they gave it in and became actors, because the journey that they took and the things that they collected along this journey, whether it be I learned to speak a different language, I got fit, I lost weight. And I think in this COVID-19 thing, it is very much about going, well, all of my jobs are gone now. Well, I don't define my worth by the amount of work that has been lost. Yeah. I define my work and what can I do to better myself tomorrow? What can I do to better myself and the people around me today? And that may simply be about going, cup of tea? Would you like me to, I'll vacuum the room, It's the small things that slowly build up and in the end teaches you about being self-sufficient, teaches you about reinventing yourself. I'm going to get up earlier today. I'm going to train. I'm going to start eating properly. And I always say, it's the old Yoda saying, I worked on Star Wars. It's the old Yoda saying, do, don't say. I'd much rather you come to me with your driver's license than you say they're going, I'm going to get my driver's license.
Yeah. True. That's really good. And I love your analogy about being a farmer. Jesus talked a lot about planting seeds. And, when this COVID-19 crisis happened and the shutdown happened, we really wondered how are we going to survive? What are we going to do? And I got online and started talking to pastors about how to help their live stream. We're a media company, a Cooke Media Group. Our team deals in television and online media, digital media. And I got on and started talking to pastors about it. And a lot of people criticized me. Phil, you need to be doing something that'll bring work in. Don't be doing this for free. But I really was committed to helping. And this morning, I spoke to 200 pastors in Russia, helping them with small churches. How do we do a live stream more effectively? And last week, I spoke to 250 pastors in South America. And it's been a really interesting ride. But the interesting thing out of all of this, planting all these seeds, is that we've gotten 4 new clients as a result of this. In fact, 4 churches, this is so interesting, 4 churches, after doing their live stream and seeing the results, they suddenly got a vision. How do we go on television? And we've put 4 churches on television just in the last 5 weeks because they had such a powerful vision. And it all came out of the fact that we were willing to invest for free and teach and train and work with people during this very difficult time. So I think you're exactly right. And looking back over our clients over the last 10, 20 years, I can see that so many clients that we've had were people that we had talked to maybe months or years before, sometimes 5 to 10 years before we'd had an initial conversation and nothing took it. We just kind of planted the seed and developed the relationship. And years later, they came back and actually became clients of ours. So you're exactly right. Being successful in today's world is about mastering the long game. It's not, trying for the quick win, because that just doesn't happen very often. We have to really have a much bigger vision than that.
I think the idea, and for me, my philosophy is that it takes a village to raise a child. And for us, it is very much the long game. But you have to be in it, because if you're in it for the short game, all you're doing is strip mining. All you're doing is trying to get what you can now and hoard it, Whereas your comment about teaching the ministry and teaching pastors and that how to go online. For me, my experience with that has been really interesting because the ministers and the pastors that I've spoken to have had revelations. They've realized really that they really don't know how to communicate. If they don't have bodies in front of them, and I said, it's a different way of looking at things. He goes, I have a different respect for what you do because trying to imagine a congregation is different from having just to work off a congregation. And I realized really quickly that the mouthpiece has to be really clear. My message has to be able to resonate even when people aren't supporting what I'm saying. And I think this whole idea of reinvention, also starts with those people who are standing in front of us, teaching us the way, teaching us, a God's work and God's, for them, it's that thing of going, I thought I knew everything, but now I have nobody to talk to. I've realized that I've relied solely on looking at people and them staring it back at me, has been, I've always thought that, that's the payment. That's my payment for being a minister because you're all here. But now you're not all here. Am I still a minister?
True. It's funny. One of the responses I've gotten from pastors, exactly what you're saying, is that in the old days, pastors would tell me, well, Phil, I don't mind live streaming, but that's not real ministry. That's not real ministry work. Well, let me tell you, they've changed their mind. Before the shutdown, nearly half the churches in America, and I'm sure it's the same in Australia, had never once offered anything online to their congregation. No live streaming, no products, no resources, small groups, nothing. And people have dramatically changed their tune. And this is what's really interesting to me, and that is we've been forced, churches have been forced during this shutdown to recognize that the online world is a legitimate congregation. That's a legitimate audience, and I need to treat them in a different way. And so it's not about, I'm telling pastors that when we come out of this crisis, don't take your foot off the gas pedal when it comes to your live stream. You need to keep that going because this is a legitimate thing. And I would say this too about anybody watching. You may be an executive, you may be a filmmaker, you may be a graphic designer, a writer, whatever you do. Take advantage of this moment because we're seeing just how much the world has shifted into the digital age. I know in our work, our team is doing more Zoom meetings and we're going to continue. Suddenly we realize we don't have to be on site as much as I used to travel 250,000 miles a year to be on site with clients. We've realized in the last 2 or 3 months, we don't have to do that so much. There's other things. I realize now that we have a small office. We've always worked remotely, but we have about 3 or 4 people that come in on a regular basis and work, but we really don't need that so much. We're just so good at working remotely and it's worked real well for us. So I would just encourage everybody listening, there's some lessons to be learned here. One of the things that I discovered years ago is I saw a study that indicated change is the most difficult thing for people to ever do. One research study indicated that the vast majority of open heart surgery patients, within 2 years go back to their old lifestyle, eating, smoking, drinking, the same thing that got them to death's door in the first place, which means even the threat of death doesn't get most people to change. So I think if we're going to adapt to this new digital world that we live in, we just have to understand, I've got to be ready for change. I've got to shift the way I do my job. I've got to shift the way I think about my career. And if we're going to do that, that's what reinvention is all about, getting a different perspective. And if we can do that, I think the chances of us coming out of this, even in a much better position, are so much greater.
I agree. I think there are certain things that are being placed on us that we go, but why? I mean, when you look at this pandemic, COVID-19, when you look at the logical nature of it, I mean, more people die of the flu at the moment, but this has shut us down. Why? There's got to be a bigger reason than this, and for me, my God wears a hard hat and tells knock-knock jokes. My God is not a God that sits in a pristine, garden, and all you hear is ethereal music going through. My God works next to me. My God is someone that I close my eyes and I call upon. My God is a personal God. So from that point of view, when we're talking about people who are go online, I encourage those ministries that want to go online. You're going online purely because it is about spreading the word. I mean, there are so many ministries at the moment, and so many different congregations at the moment that give other ministries a bad name purely because they're asking for a new plane. Here in Australia, we don't have we don't have ministries as big as that. Obviously, we have Hillsong and that, but for me, it is always that thing of going, you should not be afraid of something you don't know. The only reason you don't know it is because you haven't shone a light on it. We look at it and we go, online stuff, digital stuff, that's young people stuff. No. Why? Because I have spoken to a lot of people. I have myself visited my home ministry, my home church, and watched my old minister, give a service, which for me, I'm in Sydney, they're in New Zealand. And for me, I cried a little bit because I saw my minister, who I missed terribly, and I'm going, well, why do I have to give up that? I can sit there and I can visit home. I can sit there and I can look at the church that I grew up in, that I helped build, and I can also be part and parcel of this conversation. Now, there are comments underneath from all my aunties and all of the people that I grew up with, and all of a sudden I've come back to the digital neighborhood. So, it's not about it. This question about reinvention is not only for actors or for, world-class filmmakers. It's for your mums and dads. It's about small steps. It's about wanting to change yourself.
That's so true. I totally agree. In fact, it's interesting that I saw a study that indicated that short videos now become so popular, 2-4-minute videos, 6-minute videos. In fact, in America, they're the number one marketing tool right now. In fact, more video, more internet bandwidth, I'm told, is taken up from short videos than anything short of Netflix or Amazon Prime.
Well, TikTok, all of that stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, there you go. They're used for marketing. They're used for fundraising. Our company did all the media for the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C. that led to their opening. And I still have people from all over the world tell me about how all the videos we produced for them that they've seen everywhere. I mean, literally all over the world. So short videos are interesting. And one of the studies I saw is that 55 and older audiences watch just as many videos as 20-something audiences. I know before my dad passed away, man, he was sending me short videos all day long by email. And so, we live in a world today where things are changing, and the older audience is really coming along quickly. And so I think that brings up a really good point about reinvention, and that is, it's never too late to start. I'm a big proponent of this because I could go all day long on people like Raymond Chandler, the detective novelist, Robert Morse, who invented the telegram. So many people throughout history did their greatest exploits, their greatest discoveries, their greatest creative activity late in life. In fact, Robert Morse was an artist most of his career. And it was late, I think it was in his 50s, early 60s, when he got turned down for a commission in Washington, D.C. He got frustrated, went back to his apartment and started playing around with this little gizmo he had called a telegraph. And guess what? The telegraph literally changed the world. So don't be frustrated that you may be older, that you may be retired even. I still think it's time to figure out what your purpose is, what your goal is, where what God put you on the earth to accomplish. So understand, it's never too late to reinvent. Never get so stuck. Never get into a place where you think, it's just not worth it. It's always worth it to rethink who you are, where you're going, what your purpose is, because there's so many more things I think that we can accomplish yet in life. So I'm a big believer. It's never too late.
Yeah, look, picking up on your point too, I mean, we can always have that experience. It's not about, for us, this reinvention, it's not about changing the world. It's about changing your world. And in changing your world, you change how your children react to you, how your friends react to you. And in doing so, it is always that thing of going, when you're looking around going, well, what can I do? Sometimes it's standing right in front of you. Sometimes it is about, taking personal control of your life. We always, are looking for other people to tell us exactly what we already know. And we pay them huge amounts of money. Sometimes we just got to listen to ourselves and go, I need to stop doing that, and I need to do something else. And then go about with small steps, because it's never about, I've woken up this morning and I think I've invented the light bulb. No, it is simply about going, right, you look at successful people and you take what they have, write a plan down. They always say that successful people wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. You go, oh my goodness, what's all that about? Well, if they go to sleep at 9 o'clock at night, then 4 o'clock in the morning isn't that bad,
Right. That's so true. Well, I'll tell you this, we're coming out of this crisis, and I'm sure you've experienced this, but for leaders who may be watching, I can give you so many examples of companies that stayed on point, that advertised, that were doing the marketing, doing the promotion during the crisis, were the companies that came out the best on the other side. And I tell that to pastors, churches that are still promoting themselves, marketing, reaching out, doing their job, making a difference, who are in the fight during this crisis, are the churches that are going to be noticed and recognized, and people are going to want to come to when this is over. And I think it's true for individual creatives as well. Don't take this as a time to hunker down. Don't take this as a time to step back. Here's the thing. I'm sure you've heard on television over and over on the news and in commercials that there's a new normal. Things are not going to be the way they were. These are unprecedented times. I'm getting sick of hearing those phrases. But the truth is, it's making people realize change is happening, which means during a crisis, as you come out of a crisis, is the best time in the world to rebrand, reinvent, rethink, change whatever. I know every leader watching this conversation right now has something you want to change in your church, your nonprofit, your company, whatever it is. You've got things that you've always thought about changing, but maybe you thought it's not worth it. People will push back, they'll criticize. Let me tell you, people's mindsets are all about change right now. So that's why I love the fact that the CMAA conference is happening right now, and we're having this conversation right now, because coming out of this crisis could not be a better time for people to change, whatever, rebranding, rethinking, reinvention. So start right now. I would encourage everyone listening, think about what you want to change in your life. What do you want to change in your organization or your company? Start today, because people are ready for it. People are more open to it, and chances of succeeding are so much greater than they normally would be.
There is a sense of camaraderie out there. People are quite happy to open their hearts. At the moment, I am doing interviews during my Zoom lessons with my second and third year university students, and I've been inviting members from the acting fraternity, whether they be in the States or around the world, stunties, and all I do is just send them a message going, can you chat to my kids for an hour? And they go, yeah, that's not a problem. And they've just finished, they've won an Academy Award, they've been, they're stunt doubles, but they're able to do this, and I think my message to all of you movers and groovers, all of you who are catalysts in your community, is you have to understand that failure comes with success. Failure is part and parcel of this. Trial and error is part and parcel of your reinvention. So if it doesn't work out, it just means that you've just chosen a wrong direction, and it's never about changing the plan. It's just about changing the attack. So for me, it's always, I encourage you to look at the plan and try the plan out. It may not work in its current format, but the idea is great. It's about just changing your stance, or changing the attack as such. But failure is part and parcel of this. I welcome failure, because failure will tell me what I need to do. Because I'm an avid believer that if you don't fail in your task, you will never be able to replicate it. It'll be a fluke. So from my point of view, I fail more times than I succeed, but in doing so, I stay in success a lot longer.
That's a really great point. I've dealt over the years, I've dealt with a lot of crisis situations with organizations, mostly ministry organizations or churches that had a crisis. Maybe a staff member had a moral failure, or they ran off with the money, or they did something that was really catastrophic, and a church will call me in. What do we do? How do we respond? And I always tell churches today, it's not if a crisis will happen, it's when it will happen. We shouldn't wonder if it'll happen. We should plan on it, because just assume it's going to happen. And I feel the same way about reinventing your life. It's not when you're going to, it's not if I'll get fired. It's when you're going to get fired. It's not if the economy tanks. It's when the economy will tank. Think in terms that these crises, these bumps in the road are going to happen. So I would much rather be ready for it. Even I may never have to use it. I may never have to, really change direction dramatically in my career, but I want to be ready in case that moment comes. And so I'll tell you, if I could just leave people with one last thing, and I'll throw it to you, Jay, to have you do the same thing. But if I could leave people with one last thought, it would be never stop learning, never stop growing, constantly be pushing out there. I've got it on my desk, I've got a little engraved quote from Michelangelo that said, I've never stopped learning. And I'm thinking, if a guy like that could say that, man, there's a lot of space for me. And one of the things I've done during this shutdown is I've been reading like crazy. I just been really, every night I go in and just start pouring through books, because I'm thinking, what can I learn out of this experience that other people have been through? How can I learn right now? I'm reading a book about Ulysses S. Grant, the great Civil War general here in the U.S., and how he adapted to disaster that he experienced on the battlefield. I think that if we're constantly learning how we could be a better graphic designer, better writer, better film producer, video professional, actor, whatever you do, I think we'll be ready for change. So my last thought to people is certainly learn, grow, never get stuck, never stop, because that's really the key. You want to be I want to be the guy in the room that people look to for advice. I want to be the guy, it's not from an ego perspective, but it's because I want to have learned that knowledge, that I have the answers when those moments happen. And I think all leaders want to be that person that everybody looks to when a crisis is happening. Jay, if you had one thing you'd leave for people, what would you say?
Look, I think the question you have to ask yourself is, what do you want to do with your life? There are those of us who have come to crossroads, those of us who never thought that they had come to crossroads, and all of a sudden this pandemic has hit them, and they've realized, they've reassessed, they've looked in their larder and gone, I don't have this, and this. I need to reinvent, and I need to do this. For me, my question to you is, what do you want to do? And what are you doing about getting that done? We can always make excuses, but at the end of the day, one of the biggest lessons that I try and teach my students, and I teach my children, I have 8 children, is that you have to take responsibility for your own actions. You have to be able to say, all right, that was my bad. Let me start again. And I live by one adage: nobody can make you feel inferior without your permission. You have to be able to blow your own trumpet. You have to be able to say, I deserve to be here and I want to be better. And then each day, it's about, celebrating your successes in inches. It's about getting up and go, I got up early. I got up early twice. I'm starting to lose weight. I feel better about myself. And those inches will slowly become bigger and bigger until the accomplishments become, I got my diploma. I now speak another language. I can fly a helicopter, and these are all pie in the sky things. But if you dream it, you will do it. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I think do it is the key. That's a brilliant word. I think that, I meet people all the time that say, Phil, I want to make a movie. Great. What have you done towards that? Well, I'm waiting to meet an agent, or I'm waiting to be introduced to a studio executive. Or Phil, I want to write a book. Great. What have you written? Well, nothing yet. I want to meet a publisher first. Let me tell you something. You need to have something in place for someone to take notice of you and what your potential is. So you just nailed it. That may be a great way to close this whole thing, because do it. At least start. It doesn't have to be a big step. It doesn't have to be, huge or world changing, but we need to just start. And I would encourage people tomorrow, what is that dream you want? And what is that first step you're going to take to make that happen? You think is that a good advice, Jay?
Yeah, look, and I would just, I myself would leave you with this simple thought: if you're not willing to invest in yourself, why should I?
Yeah.
If you're not willing to at least come halfway, then why should anybody else think that you're a fantastic writer, you're a fantastic ideas person, that you are going to actually get the job done? If you are not willing to invest in yourself, then why should I?
Wow, that's a word. Woo, that's a good word. Hey, this has been fun, Jay. Thank you. I've really enjoyed this, man. We need to get together and actually do a project one of these days.
Listen, I'm still looking at your hardware, okay? I might have to go get my under 14 football trophies out. Yeah, look, no, thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity of having a chat on this. It's been wonderful. And to all of those who are watching this, may the force be with you.